It is a tremendous honor and pleasure to present this year's graduation speaker, Richard Emmett Dillon, of the class of 1951.
Thank you, Tom. Father Sebastian, Messrs. Steers, Sheehy, and Mandler, faculty, guests and parents, and most importantly, the distinguished graduates of 2014. That sounds pretty good. Now, Tom made a couple of errors in his little run through my biography. The one that stings, that I must correct, I did not make the choral club here. And that hurt for years. And I only resurrected my pride and reputation by becoming a tiger tone at Princeton. And if you'd like a few never mind. Okay. Now this is quite an honor for me. And before I start, I must say, this is very autobiographical. That's the bad news. The good news is it's short. I can imagine my dear father in the back of the room, observing, or in the back of this field, observing this event and saying to his pals, "Look at my son, supposedly giving words of wisdom to these bright young women and men, when he barely made it through Canterbury, and I had to give a gym to get him into Princeton." So what great words of wisdom do I have for you today? I'm going to talk to you about failure. Sounds ominous. But to me, it's been one of the most important factors in my climb through the maze and sometimes the jungle of life. I think of it as the positive power of failure. You can avoid failure by simply never taking a risk. Well, how boring can that be? But if you take the risk and fail, which will happen, you will learn and grow. You will learn to overcome the fear of failure. They say that one of the very strongest emotions is humiliation, and when you fail, you are humiliated. My first introduction to failure took place in 1955. I had recently graduated from Princeton, commissioned a second lieutenant, married, and reported to the Army. In my first assignment, I soon became the number 2 officer in the company. Pretty hot stuff for a young guy, or so I thought. During a field problem with our 250 men, including grizzled sergeants from World War II and Korea, the unit mutinied. And I mean mutinied. They refused to obey my commands. There I was, 22 years old, surrounded by 250 men who basically said, "Get lost." Now, when I say get lost, this is mixed company and a very nice format. They use some other expressions, including gestures, which made it very clear how they felt about me. I was relieved of command and sent on 2 weeks' leave. Returning to Fort Benning, I was put in the same unit and demoted. I was with the same troops. There was no place to hide. I had to gut it out, and I did. 6 months later, I was made commander, numero uno of the unit. Almost immediately, the Army's Inspector General ordered a major review of our division, the 3rd Infantry Division. A large group of officers and NCOs descended on the 3rd Infantry Division for 2 weeks of harassment. This was your peacetime battlefield where careers were made and unmade. Now, my unit was named number 1 in the 3rd Infantry Division, 20,000 troops. Not bad for a failure. Talk about a high. The guys who really counted, the sergeants, were all waiting for me at my office to tell me I was really okay. The point is, the humiliation I underwent did not destroy me, I came back and enjoyed one of the most exhilarating moments of my young life. Most importantly, I learned not to fear failure. That led to a mindset that was very aggressive when dealing with the future. For instance, my father had a successful business in New York City. It was taken for granted that I would work there. I started and lasted 1 year and resigned. My dad was furious. He blamed Princeton and all those highfalutin ideas. I said, no, Dad, it was the Army, and I wasn't going to go beyond that. I joined a large U.S. food company as a product manager in international. My first big step in that company was to be assigned to the Mexican company as a marketing director and selling U.S. management on a multi-million-dollar plan to build a coffee business. Now, maybe that does not sound like much to all you young people here, but it was a big deal, and the corporate wolves in headquarters were ready to decapitate me if I failed. However, it worked. Once again, I was willing to stick my neck in the noose. After 10 years with the food company, a head called with a real crapshoot. Be a CEO of a Denver company, small but great potential. I took it and regretted it from day one. It was a total mess. I cleaned up the mess and started 3 test markets with the product. After a year, management of the holding company told me to expand the test markets nationally. Now, this might not sound like much, but think about it. About 35 years old, big position, president of a little company. The big bosses, the guys that own the company, come in and they say, run it nationally. I told them I wouldn't do it. I refused. Test market results were lousy. We needed more time to find the keys to successfully market the product. When they left, they had hired a very, very successful consultant who, in order to check on what I was doing. This man asked me what I thought would happen now. I said, I'll be fired tomorrow. He agreed and then told me how proud he was of my decision, and he would get me a CEO job in 2 weeks. He did. I went to Canada as head of Beechnut Lifesavers. Good things happened there. Some of you probably eat, whatever they do, with breath savers. That's a product I developed up there. Anyway, I want to skip ahead 2 years to my return to Mexico as head of Johnson & Johnson. After 4 years in Mexico, I was scheduled to return to corporate headquarters in charge of all of Latin America. It did not happen. I was told the CEO of Johnson & Johnson Worldwide did not like me. I was fired, but told that I had 10 months to find a job. Meanwhile, I was doing a good job. Go back and continue to run Mexico. A friend suggested that I go back to the States and start an advertising agency, creating advertising in Spanish, using Spanish media for corporate consumer product companies like Procter & Gamble, General Foods, Johnson & Johnson. What a nutty idea. But a study of the U.S. Hispanic market suggested a real opportunity in size and growth of the market, as well as a network of TV, radio, and print to reach the market. Let's do it. Another adventure. Reality was swift and painful. Corporate America, with multi-million-dollar budgets, was spending peanuts on the Hispanic market. They'd spend like $50,000 a year on a brand in the U.S., television, etc., versus $30 million in English. 50,000 in Spanish, 30 million in English. Peanuts. Big decision. Was I going to compete for peanuts? No. Every single client was asked to take the peanut budget, double it, spend it in San Antonio with 50% Hispanic population, and have the client or monitor Hispanic sales. If in 1 year, sales in Hispanic outlets had not boomed, fire us. But it worked. Then hire us with $1 million plus budget. It worked. The agency, and here Tom was wrong again, it wasn't Mendoza, it wasn't Dillon Mendoza. How am I going to put an Irishman first in a Spanish agency? It was Mendoza Dillon, and Rumsfeld still doesn't believe that Mendoza is alive and well. The agency went from zero income to billings exceeding $70 million in 7 years. I sold it and went to Florida to play golf with Tom Sheehy. No one gives you anything in life. You gotta fight for it. I recently read an article on Pete Carroll of the Seahawks, and I know all the guys know who he is. I hope some of you ladies do too. He's the coach of the Super Bowl champion Seahawks. Pete Carroll's path to football elite was a checkered one. It speaks to the wondrous, life-enhancing values of failure as the driver of future success. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share these thoughts with you, and I'm talking to you people right down here, you women and men who are going on to bigger and better things. Life has been great fun for me and for Phyllis. In spite of the fitballs, we've been able to hold it together. She has been a rock to move all over this country, plus Mexico and Canada, while raising a brood of 6. The kids would ask, was I fired again? The answer was usually yes. And this is a very important phrase that my kids used to laugh at when they were young, and now they appreciate. Life is war, and every day a battle. You're not going to be given anything. My idol, Winston Churchill, had this to say about failure. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. The Army experience changed my life. It has been said that humiliation is the single most powerful emotion, and overcoming humiliation is the second most powerful one. After the Army, there was no longer a fear of failure. Okay, now off with you to the next great challenge in your lives. College. Work hard, take risks, succeed, and above all, most importantly, have fun. Thanks.